but take your time. But come as close to the front as you can as we begin this evening's forum. Well, let me start by introducing myself. I am the Reverend Dr. Wendell Christopher, the privileged pastor of the Church by the Sound, and the only church in Christendom that is between a devil's hole and the angel's grotto. It's been my privilege to be their pastor since June of 22, when I returned home after 50 years abroad in Christian ministry and social action. And tonight's event came about in a conversation because I think that it's important that the church play a role, especially today, in the political lives of those God has given us to shepherd. I spent the last 20 years as Director of Social and Political Action, representing the AME Church in the 2nd Episcopal District, which encompasses the state of Maryland, the District of Columbia, the state of Virginia, and the state of North Carolina. I have a lot of experience in social action, having worked in the campaigns of Mr. Obama and the campaign of Mr. Biden and the campaign of Mr. Clinton. It's been a journey, and one of the things I wanted to do was come home because I was privileged to be the nephew of one of the giants of one of our political parties, and that is Mr. Freddie Wade. That's my uncle. And every time I would come home and tell him what I was doing, he would always encourage me. And so tonight's event comes about as my concern for our country moving forward. It's especially meaningful that St. Philip's take a role also, because this year's Black History Month, and also it's the week that we celebrate tomorrow the birth of the founder of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, Richard Allen. The African Methodist Episcopal Church was born out of the oppression of black people in the United States when Richard Allen, a slave himself, got his freedom, left Delaware and went to Philadelphia, joined the Methodist Church, but was not allowed to worship in freedom. He was dragged up off of his knees on a Sunday morning from St. George Methodist Church, and he left along with about 300 others and bought a blacksmith shop. And from that blacksmith shop, he started what is known as the Free African Society. The Free African Society evolved into the African Methodist Episcopal Church, which is now on 6 continents throughout Africa and Asia, and has about 3 million members. The African Methodist Episcopal Church has been a giant in civil rights in the U.S., a part of every major movement, and still is. And it's probably one of the most respected religious bodies in terms of social action and political action. And so I think it's good that we come together tonight to hear what those persons who are presenting themselves forward to represent you in C7, to hear what they have to say and what they propose to do about the conditions in which we find ourselves. I was speaking with someone earlier about what's going on overseas, and my heart goes out to so many of my parishioners that I pastored in Washington, D.C., who work for the federal government, because they are now without jobs. And I cannot tell you how hurtful that is to me, especially at this time. So we are living in an age and in a time that we need to have persons representing us who have integrity, who have principles, and who have courage. This is not the time for us to be lax. It's time for us to be serious about our politics and serious about our island. And I think that tonight we will be able to at least hear from the candidates. And I want to thank the Rosemount establishment for opening up their facility for us to have this event. I want to thank the St. Philip Church, especially Ms. Vanessa Bean, who was responsible for the wonderful posters that you saw. Also, I want to thank Mr. Najee Musson, who given us a PA system, and Mr. Jonathan Rogers, who he and I used to work together some years ago at Dockyard. We made furniture for Furniture City. For those of you who didn't know, we used to produce furniture here under Mr. Charles Main up in the Dockyard. So tonight we come, and our moderator is Mr. John Barrett, and we ask that he might come forward at this time. And as he comes, we ask you to get your questions ready. We're going to ask the representatives, Mr. Gibbons, I'm sorry. I'm bad with names, let me be honest. I just celebrated the 25th anniversary of my 49th anniversary of my 25th birthday. So I may, do the math. And Brother Anthony Richardson, who's coming at this time. Ms. Robin Tucker was invited, but she declined the invitation. So I'll now remove myself. Have a wonderful evening. Let us have a good forum, and I'll come back to close. Let me start with prayer. If you all don't mind, you need prayer. If you're just right wherever you are, you just stop. Eternal and all-wise Creator of all that is and was and is to come. We, your sun-kissed brothers and sisters, bow our heads at this moment to thank you, God, for life, for health, and for strength. To thank you, O God, for the opportunity to be able to share ideas and ideals as we come to listen to those who present themselves to lead us in the secular world. We pray, O God, that we may disagree but not be disagreeable, and that we may listen with our hearts and our heads, and that all that's done will bring honor and glory to your name, for it is in your name that we come. In the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Good evening, everyone. I am John Barrett, and I am agreeable. I'm out of politics. I describe myself as a recovering politician. Maybe on step 5, and I'm trying to stay on the wagon. In any event, welcome everyone. We don't have any hard and fast rules this evening. We're going to give the candidates a chance to share their views. They will get equal time. And then we will open it up to you, the floor, for questions. The only thing I would ask is that when you preface your questions, as most people are inclined to do, I understand that you keep it as short as you can so that we can maximize the time and give everyone an opportunity to ask a question. And I hope you'll feel comfortable doing that, because that is what the candidates need to hear, the questions, and then for you to hear their answers. So without any further ado, let's begin, and I'll allow each candidate to introduce themselves. Is that fair enough? All right. Not each, you don't introduce him, you introduce yourself. Now, do you need a...
Testing. Well, we'll say good evening. We're in a place whereby we can certainly share, and so me and Imam will share the mic as we are sharing the stage tonight. I'll start by saying thank you to everyone for attending. Those who know me will know that I am pleasantly surprised. Good to see you all with the attendance. Definitely very pleased that you all attended. And our goal tonight is to serve you and serve you by providing information and answers to who we are, what we are doing, and what we would pledge to do on your behalf as members of Parliament. You will know that I am the current Member of Parliament for what I call C7 Hamilton South. I was thankfully the first PLP representative to serve the area as we ran in 2020. In the area was my second time for running. The last time I ran, I lost by 21 votes. And I say that because it's actually important right now, especially in terms of people are saying I'm not going to vote. Please know that every vote counts. And doing the math, if 12 people had voted differently in 2017, I would have won. And so every vote does count. And obviously, we'll get into some more comments once you start to ask your questions, because I believe it's more important for us to answer your questions than for us to give any statements. But I will say this, that what I have learned after these years living and serving in C7 is that the greatest thing that I would like to do going forward is to make sure that we engage. When I say by we engage, is that we have to do better in terms of hearing from you and then communicating that information back to the parliamentarians, and then making sure that we move together in a positive format. Many people say that the current leader is a dictator, and I will tell you quite clearly this, that just like we are meeting together right now, when we meet on Wednesdays, we go at it. Literally. I don't use profanity, that's for sure, but we go at it. And then when we come out of the room, though, we actually come up with a common voice. But once we are in the room, we do go at it, as it were. And I will stop here and allow, obviously, give Mr. Gibbs a chance to give his comments. And then really want to engage yourselves in your questions, your comments, and your concerns. And then hopefully toward the end, be able to give some more comments so you can understand, from my perspective at least, what the current status is based upon your feedback, knocking on doors, seeing the streets, and those kind of things. And so with that, thanks again for attending. We are truly blessed to see the level of attendance, to be honest. And so I'll say thanks again.
Thank you for that sharing about yourself. This is a wonderful opportunity. I am so thankful for this arrangement by Reverend Christopher stepping up and St. Philip's Church providing this opportunity so that we can have a dialogue and get our messages across. This is something that came to me very suddenly, so my aspirations were never to be here, but I'm presenting myself to you, and I'm thankful for the opportunity. My name is Iman Gibbons. I am Iman Gibbons. I'm from Hamilton Parish, Bayless Bay. My parents are Wendell and Eula Gibbons. I was born and raised in what was considered C5, but I'm currently operating a learning center at number 1 South Breakers Road, and I've been there for the last 4 to 5 months. And when the election got called, it became clear that there was this movement taking place. There was this awakening taking place. That the people were moved to see something new happen on the island. That inspired me. I was having a conversation on the couch with another very inspirational member of this independent movement. And it was through that conversation that it occurred that we need to step up and answer the call. This is actually the second time I feel I'm answering a divine call. And things have been falling in place since I answered the first one. So when the phone literally rang and my eldest brother picked up the phone, was on the phone, and told me that he knew that I was running as an independent in this election. I was stunned. I turned to look around to see where that voice was he listening? How could he know this conversation was taking place at that time? And he said that he had a vision that our father, that we call the Dread, I don't know if you know Wendell Gibbons, or if anybody is, if you know Wendell Gibbons from Hamilton Parish, a stalwart entrepreneur and a community activist. he visited him in a vision, and he conveyed this message to him. And my brother called me while I'm sitting on the couch discussing the possibility of her running, one of the parents in my homeschool cooperative. And it became clear that I needed to step up and put all lack of clarity aside in being an MP and figure it out as soon as possible and present to you what it is I think is a vision for the future that will embrace all of the energies and entities in this C7 region, but beyond. How we can work collectively together, how we can embrace our differences, how we can structure an educational and socioeconomic plan that integrates people, that leads to more cohesion, that prevents the bickering and the back and forth that we tend to see or hear on Fridays. Prevent that. How do we remove those obstacles? Is there a way to restructure the infrastructure so that we prevent those discussions, those conflicts? And I believe I have a proposal that I want to put forward to you tonight and through these next few days until the election. And hopefully we can make a connection and that at least that message will get across. Like I said, I had no aspiration to become an MP in my life. This is not, I enjoy engaging people, but my purpose is not to be the center of attention in any way, shape, or form. How I operate my educational center is myself and 14 students, small groups, and engage in people. So I would like, if we could recreate that and engage each other and have some productive dialogue and demonstrate to Bermuda, to our young youth, that we can have constructive conversations and we can move the conversation towards a space of harmony. That's most of all what I would like to offer in my engagement. So again, Iman Gibbons, an independent running in C7, but originally from C5. This whole Harrington Sound area is a part of my soul, and I just want to reflect that back to you and see how we can come together and create a better union. All right?
Thank you. I'm going to kick it off by asking one question of each of you. Knock on my door. Why should I vote for you?
Yes. Okay. So what I was bringing forth in that same question, bring forth in my statement to answer that same question, is that I'm not out searching for people's votes. I'm here to bring a message. I'm here to bring my experiences all together and try to demonstrate to you that there is an alternative. And that if you're looking for an alternative, that someone has stepped up, and in this case, myself, I'm just the vessel for this message in this case, and that if you're looking for an example of how to operate outside of the paradigm that we currently have, which is contentious in its nature, if we can look outside of that and see beyond the party politics regime that has predominated the political scene for 30 years up until 1998, and now we have achieved one person, one vote. It's time to move on and vote for candidates that are going to represent you. Vote for candidates that are going to that are going to be your advocate throughout the process, that are going to be accountable to you throughout the process. And I pledge to do that, to be open, to be upfront, to be transparent in all my engagements and all my transactions, to be accessible, to be accountable, and to demonstrate my appreciation for having the opportunity to be here. That's what I would say.
Thank you. I understand people may not have heard me when I first kicked this off, and I said I wanted to ask one question of each of the candidates, and the question was, if I knock on your door, why should I vote for you?
My answer is a little bit shorter than that, to be honest. It's knock, knock, knock. My name is Anthony Richardson. I'm here. I'm canvassing on behalf of the Progressive Labour Party, and I want you to recognize that if you vote for me, I am your voice. What I mean by that is my responsibility is to come to you, hear what you are saying, hear what the community is saying, and then to carry that back to the Progressive Labour Party to ensure that what you want actually ends up in the legislation wherever possible. I think that's what I said earlier, in terms of we have to engage better, and I recognize that me and others have not done a good job thus far, but we need to really, really sit down and listen and engage, and then to be able to go back and say, you know what, this is what my voters are saying, and therefore I have to represent that. And the one thing people may not recognize also is that normally in the House of Assembly, we stand up and I'll support what the PLP is doing, for example, but there is more than that now. It is to stand up and say, based upon my constituents, I will say X, Y, Z. I may support what's going to go ahead, but I have to make sure I express what the voters are saying, because that's what's missing now, I believe, is that we don't hear as much in the public as we should from what the voters are saying, and that's going to make a difference.
Thank you. Do we want to start with questions from the floor? I can keep going. Because the next question I'd want to ask them, and I'm sure it's on your mind, what do each of them see as the big issues that Bermuda is facing that whoever forms the government needs to tackle, and in what priority? First, Anthony.
What are the biggest issues? This is an example of where it's not what I think, it's what you think. And I can tell you, on the doorstep, right? One of the most significant things we have to address is immigration. What I mean by that is that for many Bermudians, we cannot give anybody else status. For other Bermudians, yes, we do. And for those that have PRC, yes, we must. That has to be addressed in an honest conversation. And I know that because that's what's been on the doorstep. And sometimes it's about black, it's about white, it's about Bermudians, all kind of issues. And I believe right now we're at a point whereby there is naturally a lot of emotion, which is a part of the process, right? But we have to get to a situation whereby it's a real conversation. And that's, in my own words, that is a definite. A second one is actually education. I have been aware of the government's plan to restructure education, but I have actually been very surprised recently about how much angst there is in the community around the education reform. And we have to, I believe, again, I keep saying this word, have more conversation, right? We have to do that because it is a real concern. Right now we have the disparity within public education, and it has to be addressed. I am a fervent supporter of public education. Fervent. One reason, my wife, Dr. Holly, is a school principal, but also because me, my wife, and my two children went through public education. And it wasn't necessarily easy, but it is definitely achievable. And we recognize, of course, that public education is different than private because public cannot choose. They take everybody. So it has to be addressed. And the third one, which is more of an Anthony comment, actually, is we have to get to grips with this corporate income tax. Because once we understand how that's going to work, we can finally address in a real way the cost of living. And in that context, right now we say, okay, everything is too expensive, right? There is actually a Progressive Labour Party plan whereby once we get the corporate income tax, and I do, by the way, I recognize there are lots of questions about that, but I can deal with that later if necessary. That is going to really be one way for us to really address the cost of living in Bermuda. And for those that think, guess what, if it doesn't happen, we can still do so because right now we're going through a process where for the first time, we're going to actually, first time in 21 years, we are going to have a budget surplus. And again, sometimes that becomes tactical, but I can explain it better if time permits. So I think those are the three key areas. And there's one other one for that's really, really local, and that is we have to make sure that the Devil's Soul Club actually has proper parking, and we finish the division between the upstairs and downstairs so that you can actually have a what I call a family event, and people not have to go downstairs through the bar, do whatever. They should be able to have a full family event upstairs without going to the bar at all. And then, of course, there is sailing in the sound.
Okay. So again, the question being, what would they change? What are the major issues and priorities? Where do we start? Firstly, I get a little emotional in these issues. Let me just state that. If I get a bit passionate, please bear with me, because it's out of the heart. Our youth are killing each other in the streets. We have cousins pointing guns at each other and rupturing their chests and blood pouring down, and in houses where people have to wake up the next day and go on with their lives. This is Bermuda. What happened? What took place that we could get to that point that the next day everybody just moves on like nothing happened? Our youth. Why are we here if we're not here to protect our youth? If we're not here to provide a safe environment for our youth? An environment where they can grow up and not fear going from one neighborhood to the next. Play sports against each other and be able to have to run and jump in a car because they can't go to the club that they just played sports in. Are you a part of the same environment? I don't understand it. I don't know how we get here. I know there is a way around it, but we have to stand up and each of us be accountable. Each of us take this on our hearts and do something differently. If you continue down this road, how many people we have to see jump off of a building? Are you aware people are jumping off of buildings? Where is the state of emergency? We are in a crisis. Where is the urgency to resolve these simple issues? We talk about balances and budgetary issues, but we're bankrupt morally. We've lost all accountability. We proceed as if everything's normal. If I see another one of those commercials talking about everything's okay, I'm sorry, it's not. We have issues. We are in a crisis. I'm tired of losing we talk about promises kept. What? Promises lost. We're losing our future. There is no purpose if you do not take care of your future. If you do not take care of your youth and provide them with a safe environment that they can grow up, play sports, compete against each other, and go home or go to the club, enjoy themselves afterwards, and go home. If that can't happen, where are we at? Do you rest at night after you see a child died by some senseless violence? I can't. I struggle to understand how we have stooped so low that we don't recognize that we are in a crisis and we need change. We need to do things differently. So that's our youth. The roads, they're taking our youth equally. The road traffic accidents, the way our young people drive on the road, ride on the road, however. Too much life loss between a gun, a knife, or the vehicle. We have to stop that. When are we going to lose another athlete, another college student, another, it's promised lost. How are we going to change these things? Each and every one of us have to reflect on what are we doing to be a part of the solution. Are you making a sacrifice? Do you look yourself in the mirror? I did a meditation recently, and I stood and I looked in my eyes in that mirror and asked myself, am I doing everything I can? Am I putting anything else before the betterment of the society? Because we all have to live here. No matter which side of the road you live on, or what floor, or what, we all live in this soil. And we have to show more dedication to changing these things. There's simple pieces. Mental health is plummeting. People have no they have no hope, or far less than what we used to have. When you look people in their eyes, they're lost almost, as if there's nothing to live for. So that's why we can have so much loss of life. We don't appreciate life enough. We don't take time and reflect. So what I want first is for us each to take time out and consider what changes we can each individually make. That's what I want each of us across the island to put down all barriers and do what we need to prevent the loss of life in the streets, on the streets. Yeah, we could go on for it. That's just a start.
Thank you. Is the microphone
We have a
for
question
the floor
from the
working?
floor. Yes.
Yes, all right. So we're ready for questions. I hope I have to go down there and shake you to ask questions. But please,
Okay.
somebody kick it off.
Okay, good evening. We've heard your thoughts on the biggest issues in Bermuda, but my question would be more specific to C7. Through your canvassing, what have you found the biggest issues in C7 to be, and what would you do immediately to address them?
Yeah, so far, I've covered 4 of the main neighborhoods, and what I attempted to do was reach our elders and our seniors and seek their approval first, really, in this process. I'm totally new to this process. Like I said, I had no ambitions of doing this, but I was called to it. So I've sought out our seniors, I've dialogued with them, I've asked them, are they being attended to, are they being listened to? Do they feel that they are cared for? Do they feel that there is the environment healthy for them to continue through their retirement? Can they afford what they need? And there are many questions. There are many doubts. There are many issues along the cost of living, those pieces are repeated. You hear these same issues over and over of how we're not able to make ends meet and how the economic state of Bermuda, although some are benefiting, and so the balance overall may look like there is a surplus in the budget, but most people are in a deficit, and our seniors particularly are in a deficit. So I say our seniors are under cared for so far in my the surveying that I have done. I would say that people are disappointed with the state of party politics. They're disappointed with the bickering. They're disappointed with the back and forth. The lack of productivity in the conversations and the dialogues that happen between the different political entities. They would like to see more productivity in those arenas. I think that's 2 to start with.
The question, I think, was what have I seen based upon the canvassing and what are the issues and how can they be resolved? I said to you just now that the one issue is going to be cost of living. That's almost a given for everybody nowadays. And what I can do is speak back to what the government has already put in place, and that is making sure that we start to, one of the biggest impacts on cost of living in Bermuda is actually the import duty, and so the government has a plan already. They started to have zero duty on what's called the essential goods. They're now going to expand that. And one thing we have to do is to have a conversation about what is essential goods or what are essential goods to get from yourselves. For example, one thing is codfish. Is that essential, yes or no? If the answer is yes, then we should have a zero duty on that. It's a small example, but a big example that I know we have to address. So that's generally. There's also the question in terms of the cost of healthcare. That is a big one. And what I've asked the party to do is to have a better definition of what universal healthcare is so we can explain it and so the community can have a better appreciation for what is going to happen going forward. The Premier will always say in his capacity as the Minister of Finance that what the government did do is freeze some of the aspects of the cost of healthcare over the past several years. And so that is how the government is currently addressing it, but there is lots more to do. many people may know that I was involved in healthcare for probably the past 20 years or so, and that is also one of my passions, is to ensure that we do a better job around healthcare. I also spoke about the idea of the PRCs and status. That is actually a big issue based upon canvassing. And what I will also say is that one of the things I like about C7 is it is a microcosm of Bermuda. And what I mean by that is that in one area you have persons who are like what I would call working class. In other areas you have the super rich and the super, super rich. And that's how Bermuda operates. And so some of the concerns are with respect to the super rich, and some of the concerns are with the working class. And the working class issues are different, but they are obviously still as relevant, if not more so, than the super rich. And so we have to understand how these things interact. One of my times of canvassing was that a business owner who has about 50 employees, he wants to employ only Bermudians. And I said, why? Because he believes that that's what he should do, only Bermudians. But his challenge is he cannot find Bermudians to always work based upon education, all these kind of things. And so we have to work on that. And I think it's a greater understanding of each of those pieces and how those pieces work together. Because on the one hand, we have the business owners, on the other hand, we have the workers. And they have to work together in order for everybody to be able to move forward. So that's probably 2 or 3. And then I keep coming back to my personal goal is to ensure, that's what you're saying, for example, about how we basically do better with our young people. The club, if it becomes a more active and universal club, it'll do that. Because one plan is for the club to have an after-school program. And so you may be working in how much in the knock off, I don't know, 5:30, 6 o'clock, whatever, right? You want to be able to come home and have your children, homework is done, they have something to eat already, and they're basically ready to go home and get themselves settled. That can happen if the club is operating correctly. The club also has the ability to have a commercial kitchen. There's no reason why somebody can't rent a commercial kitchen. And even though I don't personally agree, yes, you can have a party down there, but have it in a more effective manner. And we have to also respect Mr. Tolbert, who stays next door, and the other residents on Club Road. And so there are those things we have to do. And so I guess to summarize, it's all of these things have come from my canvassing and living in the area, and we can and should do more in those respects. But please, ask your questions.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Boy, where do we start? I think everything that Iman spoke about in terms of, and then you've just scratched the surface. I'm extremely passionate about those things as well. And I think Anthony touched on it when he said that the party has not done the best job in listening to the people. But I've been around long enough to see that most parties don't listen to the people. And so right now, maybe the campaign is going to be, okay, we're going to listen to you now. Most of us, and I'm almost, I can put my neck on the chopping block, I'm sure I speak for hundreds of Bermudians. When I say I'm fed up, to the point where I almost don't care anymore. It's not about what you can do for me as a political party, but I got to do what I got to do for myself. And as I explain to people, I don't condone the crime. I don't condone the drug dealing. I don't condone the assaults. I don't condone any of that. But however people are making money, that's what they got to do. Because it is hard. I have had a career of 41 years as an educator. I've seen all those things Iman talked about firsthand. He was my little boy student at the age of 11 when I first came back from university. I've seen all of that stuff firsthand. But when you speak out about it, you're blackballed. You're blackballed. I can tell you a lot of blackball stories. When you speak out about it, people start to feel like, oh, you're stepping on my toes, so we don't want you to be a part. But let's work together as a community, as unity. That's not really what people want, because you're going to expose some things. And so I, like so many other Bermudians, have gotten to the point now where a politician can't tell me anything. Don't tell me, show me. And if you've shown me for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years that the progress is like molasses moving uphill backward, Don't tell me that within the next year or two, things are going to change and they're going to change rapidly, because everything moves too slow. We are losing young people. We're losing seniors. We're losing people my age. We're just losing people through whatever means necessary. People are stressed and they are tired. My last 10 years in my full-time career as an educator was in the prison as the education officer. After that experience, you couldn't pay me to go back and teach in public education, because that's where they all came from. And yes, we have to hold parents accountable for a lot of what is happening, but we have a lot of parents that just don't know what to do. And for those who are stuck, there are no resources. So I'm being very honest with you when I say, I wasn't coming tonight. I came to support my dad. He is a senior in the community. And as silly as this sounds, I saw refreshments on the poster. I'm serious, because I just flew in today. I ain't gonna food in my house.
I thought you would have came to support me.
No, I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to listen, but honestly, I am tired. And I've got a question for both of you, which I'm going to get to in like just a second. But I express a lot of what I feel on social media, and my next post is about education. It is getting worse. Nothing's getting any better. And the people who are in it, who are all about change, what are they really doing? So I'm a little disheartened. I don't know what I'm going to do on February the 18th. Because at the end of the day, whoever wins, it's rah-rah, party, party, party. But what about the people? What about the people? Forget the celebration. What about the people? So my question to both of you, forget politics for a second. Take off the political hat and look at yourselves as just residents of Bermuda, citizens of Bermuda. What would you say are the 3 most difficult struggles you're having personally trying to survive in Bermuda? That's all I need to know.
What are the 3 most difficult struggles that I am having surviving in Bermuda? You're probably not going to believe this, right? It's this. It's people that have situations like you're suggesting, right, about frustration, is what do I do to make a difference? And one of my solutions, to be honest, is we need to talk more and do more. People criticize me all the time because I do stuff because it's got to get done. And I ain't about coming out and tell you I done this, this, and this, this, and this because I think it's crazy. Unfortunately, what you want to do, what you all want to know is, what have I done? And these guys around there will tell you, full out, listen, they want to, like, what have you done? And so I am going to continue doing what I do, which is when I understand there's a need, is to do my best to provide. That is one of my struggles, by the way. That is really one of my struggles. My second struggle is actually not so much me, it's more the idea of we are afraid to have that real conversation. And that is about personal accountability, right? I actually wrote an article, which has not been published because everybody's going to be, what I was going to call some drama. And that is that I believe Bermuda is at a tipping point. And that is because the government, in all that it's done, is actually done too much. And so now what's happening is we expect government to do everything. And so another example is, the other day somebody called me and said, Anthony, there's a student that's going away to school and came back and he can't go back for the next term and all that kind of stuff. And he needed $5,000. So my response was, okay, fine, tell the person to contact me because I want you to understand what did they do to prepare themselves. And guess what? No response. And so that is a major struggle. And the third thing, which nobody wants to know about, is my role as a politician. I do not believe in what I call groupthink. Groupthink is when everybody thinks the same thing. And there's a statement that says that when everybody thinks the same thing, there is not much thinking taking place. That is a struggle. And in the context of the PLP, when we do what we do, it is, in some contexts, Anthony is the outlier. But he has to keep on going. My wife can tell you that I do stuff sometimes that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to everybody, but I have to keep on going. And so it is to have that ability, to have the personal confidence that what I'm doing, I believe enough in it, that I'm going to do it no matter what others say. And I believe that we can achieve a whole lot more than we have in the past. And I would encourage you, like I encouraged other lady, I won't tell you her name, but the same thing, I met a lady for the first time the other day, right? And this is why I think that canvassing and doing what we do is actually a joy. Someone said to me, go and see her, she's not going to vote. I went and I sat to her and sat down with her and we had a conversation. And her theme was that sit back and complain. And my challenge was, you, and it's kind of strong, that doesn't matter, right? My challenge is this: you have no right to complain if you're not prepared to do anything. So don't sit there and criticize if you're not going to get up and do some stuff. And so I would challenge everybody in this room now. Yeah, yes, of course I want you to vote for me on Tuesday and me winning. Yeah, of course. However, what I really believe is more important is that just like all of you are here together tonight, no matter who wins, if we say we're going to have a community meeting, then you all should be there. And don't give me no stuff about, guess what, my child and whatever. And I understand all that stuff too, but I mean, we really have to get back to a point whereby we are prepared to give of ourselves for the greater good. And let's stop making excuses. And I would encourage you, you say you'll never go back into public education. You know full well that you are a beacon when it comes to these things. And you have too much to give to pull back and say, no, I understand the first year, I understand all that, but guess what? The greater good is served if you continue to give. And you may have to give in different ways. However, you have to give. And by the way, real quick, you said you came to support your father, right? That's an example of giving as we should do in a community. Give of ourselves for the benefit of others. And we'll all be surprised the degree to which we achieve if we do give more of ourselves for others. That's my answer.
Where do you start? So, first, I want to be clear. My presence here is to bring a message of that we can have an alternative way of doing things. My personal struggles are countless. Every day, I'm confronted with my optimistic self and trying to reach the high standards I set for myself. I'm my biggest critic. I underestimate my abilities at times, and I'm sure others do. They see my appearance. They see maybe they knew me from when I was younger, and underestimate me. And I love that challenge. So I take my challenges and I turn them into advantages. So I'm struggling to come to terms with how I can address this in this forum, the challenges, because there's so many. But I personally, and I don't want to make this about myself, but I'm here to represent you. I'm here to hear what your struggles are and how I can distill that into a package and produce solutions as efficiently as possible. How can we work together to figure out each and every person's challenges, hear them, take that data, process it, and deliver solutions. I would like to get to that job as soon as possible. I would like to continue. I'm doing it. I grew up in a household where we looked at life as a challenge. My father was an entrepreneur, Rastafarian as well, vegan, food. If we're talking about any the challenges, good food on this rock. I'm lived in different places, Cuba, Costa Rica. We're going to do something about we're in the fruit. There's no, where's the local fruit? This C7, we have 2 gigantic golf courses and no food forest. Where can you go to pick fruit as all of this open space. We have to figure out how the food doesn't go bad so fast as soon as you buy it from the grocery store. There's so many issues. There's so many ways. I think this type of a forum is difficult to address all of them, myself personally, but it's definitely not about my issues. I'm here to try to figure out as quickly as possible and get across the message that there is an alternative and that we can work together with an alternative way of viewing our situation politically and economically and turn the challenges into advantages. How can we flip this script? How can we make it a motivation to work together, to become tighter as a community, to localize our issues and deal with it right here at C7? A list of solutions in ways to tackle it. You'll see some publications coming out. And altogether, I think our greatest challenge is looking in the mirror and accepting that it starts with us, you, or the person you're looking at in the mirror. Until you make that change and make that sacrifice and do what's necessary and evaluate yourself each day, then we just won't get where our ambitions are leading us. I hope that starts to
Thank you.
spur some ideas.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll go to more questions. I'm mindful of time here as well. And I'll tell you one thing, Anthony knows this, and Iman doesn't, but in the House of Assembly, there's a period called congratulatory and obituary speeches. Each person is given 3 minutes. And if you don't do it in 3 minutes, you're stopped. So let's try and move things along at a clip. Microphone over here, and then there's a lady there.
I was invited by a friend, so I don't live in this constituency. But my question is, I guess, leading on from those long-term solutions. You know, I live in the Pembroke area, and everybody knows that Balco is pumping diesel on everybody's rooftops, and we're all drinking it and bathing in it. And it seems, in my small mind, pretty simple solution to just get the CEO of Balco and the CEO of the RA, who does have a war chest for these kind of issues, in a room and say, please give water to these people that are drinking diesel until you resolve this issue. I assume it would be impetus to resolve the issue. And work on how you stop poisoning a portion of our population. It just seems so basic. And then when I look at all the other issues, it's kind of basic, solutions to those things too. However, when I dig deeper, I have to kind of, use my imagination as to why these things don't happen. I said the CEO of Balco. I said the head of the RA. Why can't these solutions just be forthcoming? And you're not talking about, somebody's one constituent not being served. We're talking about hundreds of people, children and everybody else. That's just like the most obvious one that shouldn't have been sitting around for the last 15 years. I mean, the poor lady across the street is alleged to be fighting cancer. We don't know how she got it, but I'm sure the drinking diesel wouldn't help. It's just so basic, some of these things. The question is, why aren't we taking a more radical approach, a more passionate resolve to solving these issues? It seems to me that we love to take the diplomatic sit down and we're going to talk about it and we're going to have a meeting and we're going to have a march. And after we have the march, we can have a session afterwards and then we're going to, write a report, hire some foreigners, etc. Right? If I talked about the solution for me not drinking diesel, I can tell you that somebody loved it. But that
we
was
have the question now. And the answer, to be honest, in my mind, is that we don't do this. We sit back and we complain, and nothing gets done. And I'm not joking about this. I think we have to get better at having a real discussion and forcing, or the word now is accountability, is ensuring that each of us as members of parliament, not even members of parliament, just in the community, that there is more accountability. It is unacceptable, for example, for us to have a meeting about X, Y, Z, and I not be able to give you a response or an update within 2 weeks. And it may not be a solution, but at least an update. And that's what I'm suggesting to us all, is that we need to do a better job. And again, from experience, is that in C7, we need to get more involved to make sure that whether it be me or others, anybody else, that we are held accountable for what we do as a legislator.
Okay, welcome, Troy. I still, so were you specifically asking about drinking diesel? And that example, how do we deal with that? Because that's an environmental issue. Some environmental, or just in general. That's an example of something that's right in front of our face that we're ignoring. So we could deal with it both ways. I think in terms of Belco and their dominance, I think they need a good competitor, and allowing distributed energy throughout the island with solar, a combination of solar, wind, and local, and create what you call solar neighborhoods where, and mesh networks where people can produce energy and share it amongst themselves in a network, and form these microgrids and share energy to displace the dominance that Belco has over our energy. That's a start. I love the idea of providing water for so that they're not dependent on that water for drinking, those that live in that radius, even though I know they watch I have a very good friend who lives on Mount Hill, and they clean his roof once a year, or what I believe that the Belco has been mandated to do. But obviously it's not enough, because cancer, you were talking about the woman with cancer and whatnot. So addressing those issues, environmental issues, I think we need, altogether, we need to localize our solutions, distribute the labor, distribute the production of energy by producing microgrids, as an example. Facing issues that are right in front of us, we need an alternative approach. I use that word a lot because we've fallen into a rut. I think overall, we were faced with a particular difficulty in our history. People of, I refer to us as indigenous descent, people that are connected to this rock, faced a specific challenge over time, and we developed a solution for it, which was party politics. It enabled us to confront what some people refer to as the oligarchy, or the 40 thieves that had set up systems to prevent one person, one vote. But we're there now. So now we need to have everybody around the table without any boundaries, without any confusion based on what color tie you got on or what color dress you got on. We need to stand up together, come together, and face those issues as a community, put aside all of those other issues, and get down to the business.
Okay, thank you. This is the first time ever in my voting life have I sped down here to come to a meeting like this, because I want to let you all know I'm angry. I'm very angry. I'm a civil servant and I'm angry. And the reason why I'm angry is that the wealth of a country is based on the health of a country. And that hospital that we have is appalling. I got a leaflet from the PLP going on about the airport, right? How come no one is mentioning what's going on at that hospital? I took my father to emergency, and I decided to call the ambulance because I figured he would get in quicker than if I took him up there. And then for the next 9 hours, we were in a hallway 11 bed for 9 hours. I went in well, I came out sick. So my thing is, leave the damn airport alone, because that seems to be working quite well, and let's fix the hospital. That hospital is appalling. It's disgusting. I was a candy striper in the early part of the hospital. I went away, I did my training, I came back qualified as a midwife and a neonatal intensive care nurse and a general trained nurse, and I'm telling you that old hospital was better run than the new hospital that we have now. It's disgusting. My second point is, it's nice that you all want to throw your head in and run, and you have your ideas about how you can make Bermuda good or better or best. But none of you talk about or really understand how government is run. Do any of you know what the financial instructions are? Do any of you know about the customer service standards that we have? All of you want to get in, and you all have your separate interests, but you don't understand how government is run. And back in the day, when we had 4 permanent secretaries, it was for the big ministries. Now we have permanent secretaries for every single thing, and permanent secretaries that don't even have a damn ministry. I don't call them permanent secretaries. I don't call them PSs. I call them BSs. Because that's what they're doing, the BSing the people. And instead of them advising the minister is telling them what to do. That's not the way how it's supposed to be. The PS is supposed to be the buffer between the civil service and the ministers. And you have these arrogant ministers that come in, want to tell you how to do your damn job, right? I'm sorry. I did not want to get angry, but I'm pissed off. And I'm sorry for those of the ministers that are here. I'm pissed off. You talk about having a real conversation? Let's bloody well have one. Because I'm sick of this nonsense. I'm sick of it. Okay? I don't even have any respect for any of the people that are ministers or MPs because they're not statesmanlike. They don't carry themselves with pride or anything. They carry themselves with arrogance. Okay? I'm the minister. You do what I say. And my third point is, as a civil servant, will someone please tell the damn premier, stop changing the departments around? Okay, I work for Consumer Affairs Rent Control. Do you know that since I started in 2001, we have been under 10 different flipping ministries. 10. And what do? You change us in the middle of the budget year. So at the moment, Consumer Affairs falls under the Ministry of Economy and Labor, our second time there. But where's our budget? Our budget is still with Legal Affairs. That makes no sense. You also don't realize how much money is spent changing letterheads and envelopes and all that crap there. So whoever gets in, stop moving these damn departments around and leave them under the ministries that make sense. I'm sorry, I apologize. But I had to get it off my chest because working for government has become a real drain. You know, I used to be proud to work for government. It's embarrassing. It's I don't know if there's other civil servants here. Thank you. Raise your hand if you agree. It's terrible working for government. Okay? Cut down on the PSs and find directors of departments that know what the heck they're doing. Protect us, somebody, please.
All right, thank you very much. You said you were apologizing, but I don't think you were taking back what you said. You apologized. You said, I'm sorry, but I said, I'm telling everybody you weren't taking back what you said. Yeah, I know. Now, there was no question there, but we'll give each of them a minute to tell us what they think of what you said.
All right, we have another question over here.
Hold on.
After.
There's not going to be an answer, but it's going to be a comment. First of all, I want to commend you, right? Because we're at a point now whereby civil servants are afraid to speak. And you, granted, I'm not, so, but I'm saying, so I really commend you for that. And all your comments in terms of do we understand all the kind of things, the answer is yes. Because what you may not know, and listen to me, this is real. What you may not know is that I was working in government, the PLP first came in, and had the same drama in terms of ministers telling what to do, whatever. And my response has always been, guess what? Tell me if you want what to do, don't tell me how to do it, because I know how to do it. And I will actually prevent you from getting in trouble if you tell me what, but not how. And so my nickname became Rules Richardson, because I understood what the rules were, I understood what the limits were, and so the answer is yes to most of those comments. The challenge I have, by the way, in these scenarios is that people think I'm going to try to answer everything, and that's not the case. Unfortunately, I am actually old enough, and I've been around the civil service long enough to understand a lot of these issues. Unfortunately, I was the chairman of the hospital board when they made the decision to build the acute care wing. Unfortunately, the problem is that we have made a problem. So we, as a community, are not taking our people out of the hospital. And remember, the hospital, right, it actually is an acute care wing. It's not for general care. But what happens now is mama, granny who have a girls down there, and guess what? They're finished, but we don't take them out. So that's part of the problem. But what my challenge is, again, is that I don't like to do this because it makes it seem as though I'm going to make an excuse for everything, and I'm not. But I can assure you, right, that there are solutions, and the biggest thing, to be honest, is going to be, which sounds kind of pet, I suppose, is just like you are sick and tired and you're fed up, stay sick and tired and fed up until we get things done. And as you said, this is the first time that we have had this communication, and it should not be the first nor the last. So there are a lot of issues, right? And you went through, you talked about the hospital, you talked about the independent understanding. He can speak for himself, but I know that those guys don't understand what I'm talking about permanent secretaries, about ministers, redesigning ministers, all those things. Yes, I went through all of that the first time around. And trust me, I don't use your language, right? But trust me, I understand the drama. To the point whereby they want to fire me. But you can't fire me because it's not your responsibility. And I can't tell you how to get things done. And so, yes, I understand all those things. In terms of Mr. Premier, that's a whole different discussion, right? But the goal tonight is to hear these comments and to go back and have the conversation. And what I'll say is this also is that the beauty of my role is that he knows me and I know him. And we can have a conversation and keep on pressing until we get things done that are necessary. It's not going to be exactly what you want, but trust me, progress can be made. And so I would encourage you that when we have these meetings going forward, and it doesn't matter who wins at this stage, I want to continue to have the community meetings. And what I would say to you, by the way, which is incredible, is that there is no reason why you and I can't work together, like forget Tuesday, because what people don't know also, right, is that I stay on one side of the field, he works on the other side of the field, but we've never met before today. So that's crazy. But we can do better and set an example because I think that we want to have the same outcome. So thank you.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. That's the type of conversations we want. First, are you a C7 resident yourself? Napton Hill, which I haven't made it to yet. Well, you said politician. I'm not a politician. No. So I think we should shift. So far in my canvassing, like I said, I'm hitting 4 of the main neighborhoods and talk to our seniors. Make sure I found out where the seniors were and made sure I had a conversation with the seniors. But I think we need a better process because most people don't want to. Not most. Some people just don't want the doors to be knocked on when we need to engage in a more consistent basis, not just around election time. So set up coordinated way that, and I know that you have in my canvas, and I'm found out from this family, I forget, the Joneses. Yeah, I found out for the Joneses, Dexter Jones, and that you have a WhatsApp group and you have the clinics once a month, so that you are accessible through those clinics. When I got aware of that, I wasn't able to attend, unfortunately, but I definitely would love to see us be able to work together. And going forward anyway, I have a 3-year lease at 2 year. Let me not overstep. a 2-year lease through Marsden Church, who gave me the opportunity to be in C7. Like I said, I'm from C5, but just across the pond. My family is, I'm a Gibbons, Hollis, Outerbridge Bean. I can trace my roots back 6 generations on 3 of those branches. On the Gibbons side, I can go all the way back to Jane Bernice Walburn, who was a Cherokee Indian. I can trace back my ancestry to on the Blue Hill area in the Outer Bridges and the Hollises specifically, to one Henry Hillgrove Hollis, who was one of the first of Lyceum, one of the first trustees of Lyceum, and Crystal Caves area, and the history of the Hollis family and the Gibbons family with Crystal Caves that we want to investigate further. So I want to connect and make those connections long-standing. We need to build sustainable connections that don't just, we don't take advantage of when it's election time. That we're here, the communication is ongoing. We have technology, we have advanced ways of creating an environment where we can be communicating regularly, where you can get, as a representative for you, we're getting that message so you're not at that level of frustration, and we can address it concretely and make sure that you hold us accountable. As independent, we could do that. We can stand up and be accountable to you. You can come to us and let us know, this is my issue, and then we will address it. That is the intention of an independent. So hopefully we can move towards that in the future.
I have a question. I have a comment and a question. I'm pleased, I'm happy to see so many people in the room, but I'm a bit disappointed that there aren't more young people in the room. And so I want to start with a challenge to all of you here today to make sure that the next time there is a meeting, a gathering, to bring a +1 and to make sure there's someone who's relatively young. I think that it's up to us to make sure that the conversation gets wider and that more persons are feeling heard. I've served as a senator and junior minister for the past 4 years, and something that has come up in this election is that the young people didn't feel heard. And, you know, we've had the groups who have made sure that some persons could fight back. We had some persons who had more commentary as opposed to suggestions on how to, you know, improve the process. But I would like to know how either of you would plan to magnify the youth voice, magnify the voices of your constituents. I can't think of a really good example of an MP in this current climate who regularly, genuinely connects with the members of their constituency, listens to their concerns, understands those concerns, and takes them back and then brings back something tangible that says that, hey, I was listened to, I was heard, that the things that I'm saying in this room are going to make a difference in how you go forward. So how does, I'm not sure what her name is, but how does Miss Civil Servant know that something's going to change about the way she does her job because you heard her this evening?
My turn to go first. Yes, definitely. I know yes, so young people, it is definitely my passion. I spend every day making sure young people are heard, giving them agency. How I operate is to give them the mic and the pedestal and to be able to communicate their issues. I think that needs to be occurring on a daily basis. Disenfranchising our youth by throwing this election out in February 18th when they just returned to school after Christmas break, I think was unfortunate. It has disenfranchised our young people. If we put them at the center, how could we make that decision? I don't understand it, but I would definitely look to change systems so that we have more permanent, ongoing interactions all the way around, from our young people to our seniors, addressing elders, addressing young people, giving them the opportunity to voice their concerns and get feedback steadily, ongoing.
My answer is that I did it, or I'm doing it right now through the election process. You may be aware that when it comes to the election, what we do is we have teams, and I have been pleasantly surprised that I have been able to engage probably about 5 young people in different areas, some of them to learn, some of them to teach, and this is how it's making a real difference. Like, you'll be surprised, a real difference. Some of them have come out to canvas with me. Some of them are doing some of the media stuff. It is so ridiculous, right, that they've been able to assist me because they understand media much, 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 much more than I do. And so they've been helping me in that regard. And of course, I have 2 children. And so when it comes, let me just do this real quick. When it comes to the idea of disenfranchising the young people, for me, it's real. Yeah? I've got 2 children. They were home for Christmas. And then we called an election. They hadn't even gone back to schools, had to come back. And so it is a financial burden. But what we're going to be doing, by the way, and this is, by the way, for Ms. Daniels, in terms of how to make a difference, is at the moment, the platform talks about making sure that students can vote. But guess what? It's more than that. What we need to do is make sure that persons that are ordinarily resident in Bermuda can vote, because you may be, let's say, away for sick reasons, right? Medical reasons. Under the current plan, you won't be able to vote. But if you're ordinarily resident, you should be able to vote. And so that's one of the things that we have already started to press, is that let's broaden the definition of what we're trying to get done to make sure that persons are not disenfranchised. And the longer term plan, as I told you, not told you, but told everybody, is that we need to work more, in my mind, with the club in C7, because that's our best way to let it be a magnet and get everybody there. And of course, support some of these sports programs, because what you don't know is that we're also going to be working more closely now with this facility to make sure that the Cleveland County cricket team are better supported by this entity.
I don't know if it's a youth. We have all these boards and committees filled with friends and family and all the rest, right? How do we create a genuine space where there is a youth voice that's taken seriously? I don't know. So that's just that's what I'm thinking.
Good evening. I was invited here too. This is not my constituency. I'm in constituency 10, another hot constituency. But my question is this. Do I have your attention, gentlemen? Okay, thank you. All right. My question is, or rather my comment first, is in regards to financial assistance. From a social standpoint, I'm looking at the number of generational recipients of financial assistance. So, for example, granddaughter, mother, grandmother. And for myself, and most people in the room may know or may not know, as an educator, and we look at the trajectory and we look at where our students go and all of that kind of thing, I find that to be rather absurd. And we talk about persons who are going overseas to the UK and living off the dole and all of that kind of thing. And obviously the UK, now they went through their election, and there are some things that are being done differently. How can we better empower our people so that they are not, I heard you, dependent on the government? Increasing the financial assistance budget, I don't see that as being the solution. And I'm not talking about persons who have physical impediments, those kinds of things. You happen to fall on hard times, because life is life and for everybody. I understand that. I'm talking about from a long-term, sustainable standpoint. More and more of our locals are depending on the government. And for me, I see that, and Mr. Richardson, you've knocked on my door, even though I'm not in your constituency, but that's a problem, because I also see that as a form of enslavement. And that might be a little radical, but you look at what the word enslavement is. That's real. And it's people that look like me, not like Mr. Barrett. And that's not to be disparaging. It's just to be real, because those are the people that are in our neighborhoods. So that piece, I know that one of the ministers did say that there are going to be certain time constraints, so you can't now be on financial assistance forever. I understand that. But again, how do we help Joe Blow to uplift and upskill himself so that he then can receive and obtain gainful employment and come off and do what he has to do?
That's the question. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, you started off upskilling. We need to equip our people with the tools they need to be productive. If they're not at that point, we need to get them there as soon as possible. Stop. Welfare never solves an issue. It's a Band-Aid. It only leads to more Band-Aids. You know, you're trying to plug your fingers in holes all over the place, trying to solve issues, that we need to go to the fundamentals and educate and prepare our people for careers and give them opportunities. Too many of our young people come back and they don't, the threshold is too high because they have to have experiences and whatnot, and they're losing hope and leaving the island, they're leaving the district. So we have a brain drain. We have, so we have to import so much of our talent. We need to flip that script, develop talent here, empower our current adults to be able to be productive people in the community, and support them, yet not create this scenario where we are handicapping them by over-assisting. When you talk about term limits or whatnot, there should be an emergency funding for people that need it in an emergency, and then they are put through a process of training and equipped with an opportunity in a job that we will be overseeing them, giving them an opportunity to, you know, to make some mistakes, but get them there. We have to lean a little bit in to get them across whatever difficulties they're having to be employable. But we need quality jobs as well. We need opportunity. We need to support the ingenuity of those that have creative ideas, that want to, vendors, and supporting people with unique ideas to increase the quality of the product that Bermuda is producing, so that then we can have people come here that want to spend money because they're having a wonderful experience. They need to see us smiling again. We need to bring back the qualities that will allow us to have a better product, to then create more jobs, to then give our community the opportunity to be productive themselves and have that pride of paying their own bills. We've reached the point where we're just sticking fingers in holes all over the world.
My quick comment is going to be this. We have to do better when it comes to actual data, understand what the data is. At this point in time, the minister that has given the most recent information about financial assistance is Minister Jason Hayward. And actually, you'll be surprised to note that on the financial assistance, there's a very low percentage of people that are actually able-bodied. The majority of people on financial assistance right now are seniors, which we understand the reason why, because it's so expensive. And then it becomes to persons who are actually disabled otherwise. And so there has been a tremendous shift in terms of the demographics on the financial assistance. And what government has also put in place, by the way, is a whole raft of things in terms of whatever you want to train for, government has a way to do that. Real quick, I was canvassing. I met a couple who own a business, and they talked about, apprentices, and they did not realize that government allows you to save payroll tax, and they also help to pay the salaries of some of your employees if they are apprentices. And so those things do take place. And to answer your point, I guess, more directly, is that we have to, as I said earlier, do more for ourselves. Because trust me, government is doing a lot of stuff right now to assist young people, older people, upskilling, different trades, whole 9 yards. And so I think we have to do more. And I just want to say real quick, too, before I forget, I want to say thanks again, because you guys are here, you're asking the appropriate questions, and we have to do this more, not just lip service, and not just during election time, by the way. It's when we have our canvas things every first Saturday, is to come out and talk. And I keep saying this now, let's make the club, this community place whereby we can come and sit off and do what we're going to do. That's my point. Boom.
Yeah, good evening. I've been seeking to have a meeting with the government, and basically it's with regards to speaking truth to power. They are reluctant to sit down and talk. I write, they send my correspondence to the Attorney General's office for assistance. They have done that all of at least 6 to 8 times, sending it. Yesterday I was at the Cabinet office and I asked, well, what's the problem? Are you gunny sacking or covering your backside? No response. What I've resorted to do is sending a full document like this. It's full with letters to the Premier, letters from the Attorney General's chambers, and other letters from different lawyers here, including it's addressed to the governor, it's addressed to the Commissioner of Police, the Auditor General, the One Bermuda Alliance, the Royal Gazette, and the Bermuda Broadcasting Company. I have also, as a matter of courtesy, submitted this brief to the PLP and the PLP Central Committee and the Ombudsman. The government refuses to discuss relevant issues with people. Why? What they do end up doing is marginalizing people and doing all sorts of things. Hopefully, the lady who spoke will not be victimized or marginalized by the government. I know her, and I shall certainly be keeping an eye on that situation. But when you speak up, they don't like it. They don't like it. And all I'm saying is offering me money, and this is what they've done, to sign a non-disclosure note, won't happen. Let's sit down and talk about the issues. There are some serious issues here.
This will be the last question of the evening.
Yes, sir. Pastor Dean, you have the floor. We're family. We share.
As a fellow civil servant, I echo everything that you have shared, but I wanted to make a point more so about what you said about the hospital and when people are not taking their loved ones out of hospital. I worked as a medical social worker for 8 years. I'm now in the community working at Aging and Disability Services, which is a section in government that deals with seniors. I heard a lot about seniors in the campaign, and I can promise you that what I experience on a daily basis is nothing. I'm not sure what you guys are hearing. I'm walking in houses where my feet are going through the floor, touching the carpet. Our office, our staff, which is like 8 of us, are propping people up because we are having to fight to get funding for food, hardship, all the things that financial assistance doesn't cover. And they don't cover everything. I heard you say people should take their loved ones out of hospital. I don't think that the politicians understand that there is no true long-term care infrastructure in Bermuda, that the cost to support a loved one with private care, even with what Future Care pays for, is astronomical. If everyone in this room is working, how do they have time to look after their elderly parent? Sometimes two. The cost of a nursing home in Bermuda can start at $6,000, can range up to $11,000. We don't have a long-term care infrastructure. And I plead with you, when you go back to whomever, if the PLP is in power on February 19th, we need a long-term care system because as we hear it all the time, that seniors is the fastest growing age group demographic in Bermuda, but there is very little for them as they age. I've heard about a daycare that's supposed to be coming on the pipeline. I can promise you that that is not going to make a dent in some of the serious issues that we are having in our population with multiple comorbidities, with dementia. The amount of calls we get for people who are wandering, family members who are not coping. It is rough out here, and we need the government to really take a serious look at long-term care financing, at long-term care infrastructure, because your experience with people in the hospital is going to keep happening. We don't have a proper system for these persons to filter into. So that's why we're seeing the backlogs in the emergency department. People are going to the emergency department because they can't afford a GP. And so they're clogging up the emergency department. They're going to the emergency department because they're not safe at home. And we don't have the infrastructure to keep them safe at home. So I implore you that if the PLP is the government in the next couple of weeks, that this needs serious action and not just talking about 2% increases. It's not enough.
Yes, good evening. I too am first timer in a meeting like this because just busy. But I want to address something quite different. And I'm listening to the news reports and reading all the stuff that comes up. And I'm just wondering how, because you're an accountant by profession, I believe. And I'm just wondering how government spends the taxpayer money. For instance, how do we justify paying for a gaming commission that's non-existent? How does government justify paying for a gaming commission, paying staff and salaries and rent for buildings and perks and this and that when there is no gaming in Bermuda, and it's not going to be any gaming in Bermuda anytime soon? Why are we footing the bill for that? That's one issue. Another issue, because I heard Dr. Christopher, he's somewhere here, talked about transparency and honesty and integrity. How do we justify the Attorney General or the previous Attorney General giving her husband, now let's keep it real, giving her husband contracts under government when he's under legal issues and questionings. And then after all that's over, he gets awarded contracts from government. And this is taxpayer money being paid. So how leadership rises and falls from the top. And I believe that we're not properly represented, and a lot of things are not being said, a lot of things are not being done, and this could be the first of many meetings, but the taxpayer money, we are about $7 billion in debt, something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Bermuda as a whole. How do we, because Nari and the rest of them are going to be paying this bill at some point if there's no fiscal responsibility from the leadership that starts now. And so I'm just saying, leadership, it's important. What are we going to teach the young people about integrity and openness and transparency? What are we going to teach them? We invite them to forums and we want them to hear and listen, but what are we going to show them when the rubber meets the road? How are they supposed to act when the politicians are on the House bickering and carrying on the radio and stuff, and there's a whole lot of mayhem and nonsense going on? As Sister Rhonda said, where's the statesmanship? Where's the statesmanship? If you're going, in my opinion, if you're going to run for office, it should be a statesmanship class. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Because you're representing the people. I'm setting up. When your children start telling you what to do, right?
What I want to do, because we're going to get challenged time-wise, I'm going to stay as long as you want, by the way, so that's fine. But what I think will be important is for every single person here tonight, and I think I have Santia and some others over the side there, let's make sure that we have your contact information. Because as I'm sitting here in whatever case, right, I think it's going to be important as a first step to get back information to everybody that's here tonight. Whether it be a summary of what's been said or whatever, but that's, I think, a really, really important step. That let's let this be the first step. And then to Pastor Dean and to my goddaughter and the rest of the people, I'll say this. I am your example. Everybody knows, right, that in the house and what I say, I'm never going to slam people and be rude and order. I just don't do that. But what I am is I'm going to be constructive. And if you get up in House of Assembly and say something, in my words, which is crazy, I'm going to critique what you're saying in a constructive manner. That's how I conduct myself. Because I recognize that we never know who is listening, and we have to set a good example. And so if that's the concern, then vote for me. Election time now. Because I will demonstrate what it means to be as you call it, a statesman. You know my personal background, my personal character. I'm not rude. I can be very forceful when I need to be, but I'm not going to be rude in that sense. And so I can be very, very constructive. And Other thing real quick is I'll say this, my wife issued a challenge to all of you, yeah? And that is this. There's a place in the House of Assembly called the Visitors Gallery. Visit it. Visit the House of Assembly Visitors Gallery. Because I can guarantee you that when you're present, we act sensible, a little bit more sensible than normal. Seriously. And I do take your point, by the way, in terms of this healthcare thing, that is going to be a tremendous battle for all of us. And you said the rates range from $6,000 to $11,000. They go as high as $12,000 and $15,000. You can't afford that. And so we have to become much more structured. And the answer he comes back to is this. You are the solution. You are the solution. And the solution ends up being, right now, if it's me, if it's Mr. Gibbons, whoever ends up being, well, let be me first of all, hold me accountable. You can actually have a meeting and say, listen, we're having a meeting on whatever times be, Mr. Minister, Mr. Anthony, whoever it is, you need to come here. And I'll say this, by the way, last thing on camera, right, is that you don't know who you're voting for, what the end result will be. Because within the PLP, after the election, there's also going to be an election for the deputy leader of the country. Think about that.
So, your complaints in general about leadership, I equally feel them. I'm in your position currently. I'm not a politician. I had no aspirations to do this. I felt called to stand up and give an option. You have an option. You do not have to repeat the same thing over and over and expect a different result. Do better. Each of you hold yourselves accountable and do better. Don't complain after February 18th if you have the same circumstances. Don't. I don't want to hear it. I'm tired. That's why I'm here. This is not something I want to be doing, but I'm standing up. If you need an alternative, it's here. The time is now. Change our circumstances, each and every one of us. Make your vote count. That's what they fought for. We have it now. Put it into action. Change. Do it. Be it. I'm here. If you're interested, you can follow me at dcyfa.com. Follow what Paulu Heritage Institute is doing on a daily basis. We are conducting investigations into indigenous studies. That is the curricular framework that we work from. We will be conducting investigations into genealogy and into solutions, problem-oriented solutions in our community, continuing, no matter what happens after February 18th, because it doesn't matter to me. I just need to see people do what they need to. So I could get up in the morning. If I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to tell you. Because I don't know. Anyway, good night. Thank you for coming out. And may our ancestors protect us. We need it.
Don't go yet. Don't go yet.
Let's give the candidates a hand. Well, you all can do better than that. It has been my privilege to represent the greatest politician in the world, and his name is Jesus Christ. Because Jesus came to bring about a kingdom, and he didn't run for office. He practiced what he preached. And I think a lot of us, it's amazing. I've been in campaigns, and I hear the same things in Bermuda that I heard in the U.S. Almost item, sir, item. But one thing I want to say, one of the core problems in our island is COL, cost of living. We have a lot of sick people because it costs too much to eat healthy. We have a lot of sick people because it costs too much to have health insurance. I was absolutely shocked when I came on island in 22 and found out what the government was offering for medical insurance. They told me I was too young. I just celebrated the 49th anniversary of my 25th birthday, and they told me I was too young to get a decent, affordable health insurance from the government. And I almost started to cry because I just know how well I am, and I don't want to get sick because I have a tragic story. My aunt died one December because Bermuda did not have the capacity to take care of her heart situation, and the weather did not allow the ambulance plane from Boston to come and pick her up. And so she passed. And that has stuck right here, that we don't have the capacity on this island to take care of our folk. We have to send them overseas, and if weather is not permitting, they cannot get the care they need. One other thing about the hospital, and I might get a little tearful here. I just had a member recently transition. She was in acute care, the hospital. And when I went in that little section where they had her as she was transitioning, I could not believe the condition it was in. I walked in and I saw the space, and her daughter was there. Her daughter was grieving. And I looked and I said, to see somebody in their last hours in a place like this has to be not only depressing but devastating. To think that your mother, your father, your wife is leaving this earth from a space like this. And everybody said, well, we're building a new wing, we're building a new wing. We should have built a new wing a long time ago. And the one we have, as you've heard, is not adequate. But I digress. Thank you all so much, Rosewood, for allowing us, Mr. Andrew Archibald. And I want to thank Mr. Gibbons, and Mr. Richardson. And where's our moderator? Did he leave? Mr. Barrett? Here he is. Thank you so much, sir. And I want to thank Sister Vanessa Bean. She was the one who did that wonderful poster that made them look like gods. And Brother Najee Musson for the PA system and for this wonderful. Let me say this. I am pleasantly surprised by the crowd that's here tonight. And one of the things that I would propose, and I've heard it a couple of times, but it's something we did on the presiding elders level in the U.S. And that was once a quarter, the representative of the House in the state of Maryland and the senator came to our district and shared with us what was going on so that we knew from the federal government and from the local government. And I think that this is something that's needed. I heard a lot of passion here tonight. But the thing is, we'll do this now. But 6 months from now, oh, I ain't going to that meeting. And I think we have to hold ourselves accountable. You know, I hear a lot of stuff about our young people. Well, the way we're bringing up our young people now, I didn't come up like that. And when I hear some of these young people talking to their parents and stuff, you know, people say, well, this is a new generation. Well, you get the generation you bring up. You know, if you're not the parent, if you're being parented by your children, you're in trouble. Enough of that. But on behalf of the St. Philip African Methodist Episcopal Church, where I'm privileged to be the current pastor, I want to thank you for coming. It was our joy and privilege to present this, and I hope that when we move it into the club, that you'll turn out. And for those of you who are visiting C7, you've been invited. They didn't tell you that there was a charge, so I will collect that as we go out. But thank you so much, and visit us on Sunday morning. We're on YouTube and on Facebook, and we have Men's Day coming up, and our speaker will be the Minister of Education. We invite you to come and be with us. It should be an interesting time. Please make sure, the other thing is, make sure that you leave your information where we can contact you before you go so that we can do a good follow-up. Thank you so much. God bless you. Can we all stand?
So everybody, one quick thing also is that there has been, for whatever reason, an incorrect communication in terms of where the voting location is. You know that for C7, the voting location is going to be Harrington Sound Primary on February the 18th, next week, Tuesday, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we invite you all, of course, to come on out. Come early if you can, just to make life that much easier. And I want to say one time also, as the serving member of parliament for C7, I am tremendously pleased with the turnout. You all know who you are in terms of this, the first time you've come to a meeting like this, sir. And so again, I want to commend you. And as Reverend Christopher said, going forward, when we do these things as a community meeting, please come on and attend. And he didn't say this, but what he meant was, let it sometimes be at the church, not always at the club. So we can do some meetings at the low level of the church and do some things. And so again, please make sure, bring a plus one, but also please make sure that you vote on February 18th. And everybody that you know, call them and get them to vote also, because it is very, very important that you vote. Obviously vote for me, but still vote. That's the most important thing, all right? And again, so I will say thank you, and tremendous thank you also, Mr. Gibbons. And we will now have to come across the field. That goat's not yours, is it? That goat's yours? Good. So we'll come across the field and do some things together, because this should be a start of something good, all right?
Okay, one quick announcement for anyone who was challenged for the length of walking. The shuttle will finish at 9 o'clock, so if you can go quickly. If the length of walking was too long for some of the wiser people, please see me at the back of the room. I have a different way for us to go. Thank you.
May we all stand, please. And do me a favor. Take the hand of the person next to you. But please don't leave before we pray. Please don't leave before we pray. Please don't leave before we pray. Oh, touch somebody's hand. It might have some sushi on it, but, you know, it'll be all right. All right, let's look to the Lord. Eternal and all-wise Creator God, we thank you for what our ears have heard, our hearts have felt, and our minds have been made to understand. Now, God, lead us and guide us in the direction that you have already purposed for this election to be. And whatever it is, oh God, give us the courage to stand and be accountable, to speak out, to raise our voices, and to hold those whom we elect accountable. And may those who are elected, oh God, realize that they have a responsibility to those who elected them. And that, oh God, we will do whatever is pleasing, what is right, so that in the end, your name would get the honor, glory, and praise. Now take us severally to our homes and those places of our abode. And when it's your time, let us meet you in the church house to give your name all the honor, glory, and praise that you are due. For we ask this in your Son's name, who's Jesus. Amen.